This is Aztlan Migration by Ellen Query, Patricia Torres, Luis Estrella, and Sarah Machuca.
Aztec history begins with the Aztecs' legendary home called Aztlan. The general concept is that Aztlan lies somewhere in the north of the Valley of Mexico. But there are also Aztec historians, experts, that claim that Aztlan is simply a mythical place where the Aztec tribes came from. The reason that some Aztec historians think so lies in the fact that Aztlan can also be translated as the place of the origin. According to Aztec history, there were 7 Aztec tribes. They lived under oppression in Aztlan. They all eventually fled from Aztlan to the south. Aztec history explains that Aztecs began to migrate in the 6th century when they settled in central Mexico and to the south. Aztecs were a nomadic hunter-gatherer tribes, and they mixed their culture with civilizations that lived in that area before them. This mixing of cultures was the foundation for Aztec culture as we know it today. They established many cities with Azcapotzalco as the center of power in the west and Culhuacan in the south. In the 13th century, the last tribe called Mexica arrived in central Mexico and settled and captured in Chapultepec around 1248. Huitzilopochtli, Hummingbird on the left, was a legendary leader who commanded the tribe to adopt the spear toolkit and ways of hunting and gathering in the desert. The name Huitzilopochtli may have been a title of office. In any event, it appears thereafter in association with effigy or fetish-like sacred bundle transported by 4 priests as the migration continued. These priests voiced Huitzilopochtli oracular direction as to where the combined Mexica-Aztec tribe was next to travel. These matters are illustrated in a screenfold pictorial manuscript known as the Tira de la Peregrinación, the migration strip, also named the Codex Borrutini after a European scholar who once owned it. The various Nahuatl-speaking people of central Mexico encountered by Cortés in 1519 trace their ancestry to one or both of 2 semi-mythical places in northern Mexico. According to written and oral native histories, their ancestors had migrated south from either Aztlan or Chicomozoc several centuries before the Spanish conquest. Although the bulk of the extant information on these migrations pertains to Mexica, the politically and economically dominant group in 1519, the Mexica in fact represented only the last of a series of migrating peoples said to have settled in the basin of Mexico and adjacent valleys. In the 16th century, the inclusion of these various groups in lists of migrants from Aztlan and or Chicomozoc served to reinforce and validate their ethnic identities. Although it is often the case that such accounts of tribal or ethnic origins belong more to the realm of mythology than history, there are 2 strong reasons for attributing a large measure of historical validity to the Aztlan chronicles. First, Central Mexican native history is notable for its attention to chronology and record keeping, and the migration accounts are presented in the historical as opposed to the ritual or patently mythological portions of indigenous accounts. The question of where exactly the Aztecs come from is debatable. Researchers have ideas of where they might have migrated, but not an exact answer. The evidence presented shows us that while the Aztlan migration chronicles may superficially appear to be fictional origin myths, they in fact preserve valid historical information on populations movements in post-classic central Mexico. This is hardly surprising, because in contrast with ethnic history, in other parts of the world, the Nahuatl history are notable for their written component, their use of advanced and accurate calendar, and their general emphasis on chronological history that refers to these characteristics and the attitudes they represent as chronicle consciousness, and discusses the history of the indigenous Central Mexican chronicles in some detail. Although individual native accounts cannot be assumed a priority to be historically accurate due to their political and ideological role in the 16th century Nahuatl culture. The method used here of comparative analysis compensates for the biased single chronicles. It is only through much extensive comparison and cross-checking that the reliability of Central Mexican histories can be fully appreciated, and the resulting judgment of the history of Aztlan migrations is confirmed by the availability linguistic and archaeological data. As previously stated, given the lack of homogeneity evident in the historical resources, our understanding of history of the Mexica migration must take as a starting point its very complexity. Spanish chronicles in the 16th and 17th century particularly complain about this problem. The first 8 groups of people to leave Aztlan were Matlatzincas, Tepanecas, Chichimecas, Alcohuacas, Cuitlahuacas, Xochimilcas, Chalcas, and Huichonzincas. These groups settled in the basin of Mexico and its surrounding valleys. As far as finding out when the Mexica people first came to central Mexico, there is no clear answer, but it is believed that it was somewhere around 1,000 years before Cortez's arrival. The land where the Mexica arrived was full of great natural resources, such as food, gold, silver, and many other goods. When the Spanish arrived, their arrival was not only a curiosity for the Aztecs, but it also turned to be out a catastrophe. The Spanish came with horses, weapons, and many unknown diseases that, along with the warring, almost destroyed the Aztec population. Cortes had sent back word to Spain that the inhabitants of the city of the Aztecs had plenty of gold and silver, and Spain, not wanting to lose the riches, ordered Cortes to take it all. What was once a beautiful city with rich traditions and culture was completely destroyed by avarice of another country. While some traditions may still be practiced to this day, although beautiful as they may be, they do not hold the same feeling and meaning as they did before the Spanish came.
Food was a very important component to the migration of the Aztec people. Not only was food key to survival, but it also served as a variety of symbols. Food was depicted as a symbol of success. Those that obtained and consumed food were at an advantage. It was also seen as a symbol of continuity, by keeping traditions alive and creating a sense of community by eating together and staying unified. Food was also a major symbol of culture. Preparation and consumption of food is a cultural experience that can define a group of people. Lastly, food is a symbol of religion. Many religious ceremonies and traditions incorporate and revolve around food. There are many other aspects of life that were impacted by food. In the Codex Boderini, there were many images that incorporated food and also cacti. Along with corn, cactus was a prominent part of the Aztecs' diet because it was so plentiful in the desert. In addition to being an important food item, the nopal fruit became an emblem of Tenochtitlan, which literally translates to place of the fruit of the cactus and an icon of Aztec identity. Throughout the migration, the Aztecs learned how to capture and hunt new types of food. The Aztecs learned to use nets and poles to catch fish and birds on the lake in their canoes. Throughout their migration, they developed many new techniques to capture, hunt, gather, prepare, and consume food. These new discoveries are depicted in various codices, and those same techniques are still used today. This is an image of Xilonen. On her back, you can see she is carrying corn. Corn was a staple in the diet of the Aztecs and provided them with so much more than just sustenance. Corn was the ultimate symbol of stability, and its appearance among the temples and homes indicates stability in the everyday cultural and religious life of the Aztecs. This image of an eagle perched on top of a cactus was used to foreshadow that the Aztecs had settled into a new home. Maguey is an agave plant that was used by the Aztecs for a number of reasons, including food. Maguey thrives in the harsh climate of the desert and provides the main ingredients for a traditional beverage known as pulque. Pulque is made from the fermented sap of the maguey plant and is mostly consumed during special rituals. In the Codex Boturini, there are many images that depict the Aztecs learning how to make pulque from the people of Chalco. Pulque is still commonly consumed today.
Migration in history has never been easy. Like the Aztec migration, I have a short story of my own from my family's migration. This is a family portrait of my mother's family. She was Greek and Yaqui. This is a portrait of my father's grandparents. They are from Jalisco, a place called El Llano, and they are of the Huichol race. This is my personal codice of migration for my family. The footprints represent migration, and it is from Mexico to the United States. This is a picture of the moon. It is a symbol for female, and it represents my mother. She comes from Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. The symbol of the sun is masculine. It represents my father. He comes from El Llano, Jalisco, Mexico. This is a picture of a midwife. This is the way my father was born, in a ranch called El Limón in El Llano, Jalisco. This is a picture of my parents. They were 16 years old when they got married, and they left Mexico in pursuit of happiness to the United States. These are pictures of both of my sisters, my nephew, and my two nieces. This is a picture of my brother, my father, and myself. My brother currently serves in the U.S. Army, and he is currently in Afghanistan. In many ways, I can connect my family migration to the Aztec migration. Till this day, we still eat tamales, we break piñatas, and I am still Catholic.